Tell me your name and when you were born.
My name is Carmen Robitaille. I was born on August 26, 1931, in Mexico City. I have an American mother and a Mexican father. So I'm a Mexican by birth, uh, an American by choice.
Nice. And how old are you now?
92.
92. And today, you know what the date is today?
Don't ask me so hard questions.
Sorry. No, it's September 22nd.
Well, I should know one of my daughter's birthday. I should just stop to think. I have two daughters that have birthdays, one the 21st and one the 22nd of September.
Okay.
So I'd already called her and wished her happy birthday, so I put that off my calendar.
Okay. Let's start off by, let's do a tour of Carpinteria, starting at the end of the southern end of Linden Avenue by the beach. How is anything different now than then, and kind of go up Linden?
When we came here in 1959, we got an apartment at Sunset Shores. That was already there, the two buildings as they are now, but they were rentals by the week or the month, except in the summertime, they were more expensive, and only for tourists, for vacationers. So if you rent it for long term, was October through the end of May. So we rented an apartment there, and across the street on the beach side, there was a shack, and they had like stuff for the beach, not surfboards yet, but some kind of paddle boards, and I think they had like sodas. It was like a little beach shack, but it was on the sand. There's no building there now, then. It was on the sand, and it was open only in the summer. Okay, so we'd walk. We only had one car. I had a 3-year-old daughter, and so when her husband was gone on his trip, I mean, he was a salesman, he needed the car, so he'd be gone all day. I would walk. We would walk up Linden, sometimes all the way into Safeway, which was on Carp Avenue, where the pet store is now. That was the Safeway then. Also, there was a Rexall pharmacy right next, across, like there was the alley, or what, Yucca Lane, or whichever, I forget another name. It was a Yucca.
Yucca, yeah.
Yeah, a Rexall pharmacy. But that was it. And a gas station on the corner. I think it was Chevron. But anyway, on the way up from the beach, there would be, after we passed the Sunset Shores building, there was nothing. There was just empty lots.
Were there sand dunes still?
No, not really. It was flat. On this beach side, across of Linden, on the east side of it, it was the field was there, but it was really a beat up old piece of dirt, and there was only the fact the whole state beach was terrible. It was just tent camping and not maintained well. It was not. It was kind of a messy place. They did have a building that they destroyed later on. Apparently, it was at some point it was a place people could have parties. They have like a pavilion, but by the time we came, that was gone. Then heading up Linden again, we'd get to the railroad track, and the train was same as it is now. The station was actually a building, and then and across the way was all packing houses, lemon packing houses.
Do you know if they're the same buildings that are there now, the warehouses?
Was one of them burned down. They were along Sixth Street mostly, and some of them are still there, but they become like the Flag Company. I don't even if that's there anymore. I don't know, but different kinds of businesses on Sixth. But one of the warehouses actually burned to the ground, and it was kind of funny because people were across the street where is now, or whatever is now, nothing now. Well, it was Almwick's lately, and then Austin's. But then that was a garage of some kind. But the packing house burned down to the ground, and people went out to the beach chairs across the street watching the fire, watching the firemen put it out. It was kind of an entertainment. Everybody in town was there watching the packing house burn to the ground. We didn't have a whole lot of entertainment, so that was the word got out, the packing house was on fire, and everybody rushed down to check it out. So anyway, that was on 6th Street. Across the street, I think the spot, but I don't think the spot was there yet. But the Stein house was there, and it's still there. And
Do you remember there was a monkey on the deck upstairs?
no, no.
Yeah. I've been told about it, but
Yeah, well,
Lorenzo didn't remember either.
no, I didn't. I remember there was a monkey in the house, but I never saw it. But then what's now used to be Amway's and then became Austin's, and I don't know, it's part of that big construction thing now. It was, I don't think it was any, I don't know what was there. Probably part of the packing house. There was a big lemon business here. All the local farmers, people who have groves, would take their lemons there, and they'd be shipped out from there. They'd be packed and shipped from there. The train would stop where there's a brewery now, and the lemon, there was a chute. They put the lemons on a chute and shoot it right into the train.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had, the train had a sliding door on the side. They'd open that and they'd shoot it right in there in big bins. Anyway, so it was a lot of it was related to the lemon business. But then we kind of lost, we moved from that location here. We bought a house here where we are now, well, across the street, actually, from here.
What street are you on now?
Callejon. And we bought the house at the end of the street, Callejon 5540, and this is 5533. So 5540 is
55,000 in about what year?
1959. We only stayed at the beach site for a few months, and then we bought a house and moved here. In 1959, we moved to the house across the street from here, and it's now under renewal, and they've added rooms to it, and they've been doing something there for about 2 years now.
Is that the Stein house?
No, right next to it, that way.
Okay.
It's owned by a woman. Well, she goes by her married name, which is really difficult to remember. But her family name was Maloney. They bought the house from us. We sold that one to the Maloneys, but they used it as like a vacation home. And then they rented it out for a number of years. When the parents were retired, they moved permanently to this house. But eventually they both died, and then it became a rental.
Do you think people vacation in Carpinteria any more or less than they did in the 50s?
It was different.
How is it different?
Well, most of the people either had a house like the Maloney's did, or they camped. A lot of campers. And little by little, the camping got more sophisticated, and with trailers and different kinds of vehicles that they could stay in, rather than just tents. And now, of course, it's really fancy.
The camping was just where the camping park is now, right?
Yeah, the
state
same
park.
thing, yes. When the city incorporated in 1965, that was part of the limits, the city limits, but the city didn't want it because they couldn't afford to maintain it. Well, they had a budget that they were presenting. In order to be able to become a city, you have to show that it was you had enough income to maintain the city, and by not taking on the state park, it would work. If we took on the state park as it is, it was a loser then, because the maintenance on it, the income did not work right. So the city opted out of the park. The county owned it at the time, or they managed it, so the county didn't want it back either. So they offered it to the state, and the state said, okay. So it's been a state park ever since, 1965.
So
And
going up Linden, there was Omwig's hardware store.
yes, and
then-
there were small shops along the way. I'm trying to remember what they were. Actually, I don't remember what.
Okay.
They came and went, small locations. Then 7th Street, the corner of 7th, it was still there. It's a building that was there then, so it's pretty old. And we purchased that corner, and in 1969, I think, we opened up the deli house. That was that was on the 600 block. So that's the answer to your question. But
The deli house, then did Fran Puccinelli have that?
yes, we sold it to her. Yeah, it was a grocery store when we first came here. On that side of the street was a little Mexican guy who owned this little store, and he would sit on a crate at the door. And a person came in, he'd get up and go wait on him. But most of the day, you can see him sitting at the door.
And by the way, we're talking about what's now Gianfranco's restaurant
Yes,
next door
yes,
to Little Bob's.
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that was when we came. It was a little Mexican store. Then it was bought. The building was not was owned separately. The little Mexican guy just rented it, I think. Then they changed to a butcher shop. 2 or 3 Mexican fellows, Mexican families here, and I forgot who they were, but they thought they would be a good butcher shop. So they opened it as a meat market and assorted other stuff, but it didn't make it. So they gave up whatever they had invested, and the bank called us, and for some reason they thought we would be interested in buying the business. Well, we weren't interested in buying a business, but finally we bought the fixtures, and so it turned into a deli. So that was in '69. Next door to it there's like a driveway, and on the corner was Tony's Pizza.
Where Little Dom's is now.
Yes, that was the Tony's Pizza, and then we bought the building and we rented. Oh no, Noble Electronics. Tony built his own business, his own building across the street. Moved out of that area, and Bob Noble Electronics moved in there. The building was owned by some lady. They were all renters. Anyway, we bought the deli building and the one on the corner. So we owned the 7th Street corner and the deli. Eventually, we sold them both. But and Fran bought was a deli, and then later she moved and went into opened up the cork tree. However,
which was then called the Coffee Grinder.
Yeah, but what was before that? She was way ahead of her time, because there wasn't such thing as a coffee place like there's Starbucks. There wasn't such a thing. But she was way ahead of her time with a coffee grinder, and then she turned it into a cork tree. Eine's, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but anyway, between 7th and 8th Street, I cannot really remember what was there.
Well, isn't that where Smart and Final is now, in the grocery store?
Yeah, that was a vacant lot.
Huh.
And Ralph Brown owned it. However, it was divided by a street. Cactus Lane or Yucca, whichever it is, goes right through there. It still does. It's actually a city street that goes right through the parking lot. But the Safeway was on Carp. They decided to make they needed a bigger store, so they bought well, they made a deal with Ralph Brown, and they built a Safeway on the property that's now Smart and Final, but the building was on the sidewalk. The entrance to the store was on the sidewalk, and the parking was behind it. Some years later, they decided that was not a good design, or either that or for whatever reasons. They demolished the store that was facing the street, and they just set it back where it is now. They built a whole new one towards the back of the lot with a parking in front.
1 second. It's just a note to myself. Okay, go on.
Then the front then became the fountain and all that. It didn't happen all at once. It evolved. The fountain and the niceties there, because it was just nothing, a blank, just destroyed building. And so now, since then, there's been nothing there except parking and the fountain.
And then at some point, the Browns donated the area right on Linden to become the seal fountain area, right?
Yeah, I think so, but they kept I think he owned the rest of it. I don't know at what point how long he owned. Ralph owned that a long time.
I think they still own it.
Yeah. And so.
And then how about across the street from the seal fountain where Rite Aid just went out of business?
Well, that Rite Aid building was a gas station. We had a lot of gas stations there. And then that was taken out. The new building was built, and it was owned by a German, I think it was German, a fellow who sold imports. He imported stuff from Europe, like cuckoo clocks. We have 3 cuckoo clocks we got there, and different pieces of furniture and tables and kind of different things that he imported from Europe. He didn't really have a retail store, although you could go there and buy stuff, but mostly it was a storehouse for his stuff, and he would ship it out from there. But he built that building for that purpose. That's why it doesn't have really much of a front, street-wise, and it doesn't have not much parking either. But anyway, then later on, that business, he went out of business, and I don't know what, I guess it was Rite Aid now, but I don't think it was anything in between.
And let's back up a little bit. The block before, where there's new construction, but was once Omwig's and Austin's,
Yeah.
across the street from that, on one corner was the Palms. Was
Yes.
the Palms there then?
Oh yes, they've been there since 1913 or something.
What were they like when
Same as it is now. Same thing.
They
Same
stayed
thing.
the same until it closed. Huh?
Yes. It was. I think maybe the bar was. Bar was more or less a commodity for people who went there to eat, but it became kind of its own thing. People just went to the bar, not necessarily to the restaurant.
And for those that don't know, you could cook your own steak or meat on the grill.
Oh yes, even then.
And they had live music every Friday and Saturday night.
Well, no, that was more recent. At first they didn't have anything like that. It was just a restaurant, and you go there, and it was like a novelty to cook your own meat. They were very helpful. They'd show you how to do it, what side of the grill to do, which is for just a quick thin steak or whatever. There was one of the people, waiter there or somebody just to help you with that. But it was a very good meat, and then you have a deal. I mean, for $10 you could have a steak fillet, and you could have a salad. They had a salad bar, and beans and bread, and all that. Then you just serve yourself. You do it yourself. You get a baked potato.
And at the salad bar, they had world-famous croutons.
Yes, they did. They had croutons and they had salad dressings and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, that was then like that.
And then next door to the Palms, I know there was a TV repair shop.
That was yeah, that was owned by Villapando family. They owned several of those, that part of that, quite a bit of that block. And they had one of the Villapando guys was the guy that ran the TV repair place. And then one of the other Villapandos were partners with Eddie Macias and the Union gas station on Carp Avenue. The Villapando family has been around a long time. And Macias is also. But they all, on that same block was a department store. It was called Bastion's Department Store. And I think that is kind of like what the, later on part of it became a men's store. Harvey Fincher had opened up a store there, this men's thing. Then the department store had everything. You could buy clothing, you could buy shoes, you could buy anything. One of each. You know, if you didn't have your size, too bad. You just had to adjust, give a different size. But it had a little bit of everything. You could buy towels and sheets and shirts, and you know.
Is this where the ice cream store and the Mexican taqueria is now?
No, that's more like right across from the. Let me think. Bastions was maybe, yeah, you may be right. I think Bastions was over there.
Yeah.
But I'm a little not too clear on that. It was that kind of thing. I mean, you could buy anything you wanted. Maybe it didn't fit. Maybe it was the wrong color. But if in an emergency, you could buy a shirt or a pair of socks. There also was a Maze, that same block though, was Maze Cafe, which is still there. I think it's still the Worker Bee. Is that what it's called?
Oh, okay. Worker
Yeah.
bee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But so anyway, Tony's had built his own place on the corner of 7th and Linden on the western side of the street.
Well, it started on the eastern side and then moved to the western
Across the
side.
street, yeah, directly across the street. I see where's Reynaldo's there in this scheme of things. That's in the corner of 9th Street. That's across from us. Yeah.
So let's see. We've gotten up to where the Rite Aid is now.
Yeah,
And,
that was never a retail store.
Right. And then next door to the Rite Aid building is the Art Center, I think. What was there?
That was, it was a restaurant.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Where the Art Center building is.
Yes,
now.
yes. But that wasn't always a restaurant. I can't remember what it was then. That was fairly recently, before it became the Art Center. I really can't remember what was there before.
And then next to that are some...
Oh, I know what it was. It was a beauty shop. It was Coco's, which just moved on Walnut or one of those streets later. Coco's House of Beauty. You could get your hair done there. And it was... That was more. It was further south. I mean, it was closer to the deli. I'm all confused as to what was where, but in any case, there was a beauty salon, Coco's House of Beauty, and it moved across the next block.
And further along that block, there's the building that's there now, built by the Vietnamese couple. Do you know who I'm talking about? That
Yes,
owned the
yeah,
laundromat?
Reynaldo's.
You're right, Reynaldo's is there. And what was there before that building was
No,
built?
Reynaldo's was there already. They didn't build it; they added to it. They added a second story and improved. And when the Vietnamese people came, it was Reynaldo's, and then next to that was a video store which they owned. Reynaldo's was the Mexican guy, But
A radio store?
no, rental, video store.
Oh, video
You could buy
store.
the
Oh, I remember, yeah.
you could buy the tapes or rent them. And then beyond that, south of that, was a laundry, a laundromat,
Which is still there.
which the Vietnamese people owned both of those businesses. Eventually, they bought the whole building, which was nothing second floor. It was just all off the street side, which included Reynaldo's building. So they bought all that, and then they built a second story on it. And the Vietnamese people did that.
Nice.
And so that's the...
And then across the street from that, where there's Smart and Final going north, there's that older building that was Senior Frogs.
that one...
What about that building? Currently, there are architects upstairs.
well, yeah, I think they moved out.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what was at the bottom of that. And on the side on the side street, on the Wilbrant or Lane, or what it's called now, that was a beauty shop and a real estate guy. But at the front, what the heck was it before the Senor Frog? Can't remember.
I think at one point it was Bagel Boys, and then there was kind of a gift shop. Various things came and went there.
See, I kind of lost track because by that time, I really didn't have much to do with downtown. We didn't have a business there.
Oh, when did you get Robitaille?
1989.
Okay, so across...
So there's a span of years there that we were doing something else, and we'd go to grocery shopping, and that would be about it.
What business were you doing before then?
Well, actually, the deli was a sideline. My husband was always a salesman, and his territory was the West Coast, so he was gone a lot. He'd go as far north as maybe Paso Robles, and then south to only down to Ventura maybe. But he'd call on grocers and grocery stores, and grocery distributors. And then he would, military bases, he'd sell to them. So he was on the road a lot, not much at home. So we kind of lost track of what was going on in town because we weren't there much. We bought we don't own the building that we're in now. The baker.
We're talking Robitaille's candy store.
Yes, that one we opened in 1989. And that one is owned, the building is owned by the Baker family.
How did you decide to make a candy store and manufacture candy?
Well, we acquired that business in Santa Barbara. And that's a long story, too. A fellow we know was a nice guy, but not much of a businessman. But he decided he wanted to have a business, so he bought a candy business on Upper State Street, the same block, you know, where the ham place is, and several things on State Street. Well, he didn't find out that he couldn't make candy there. He could sell it, retail it out, but he couldn't make it. But he wanted to make it, and so he opened up an additional place on Gray Avenue, kind of the industrial part of it. And he made the candy there and then sold it out of the store on State Street. Well, there wasn't enough money in it to do that, to both keep two places open, two rents and two employees and all that. So he borrowed money from us. And little by little, he had to borrow more and more. And finally, he said, you know, I'm not cut out for this business, and I owe too much money. Can you take it? And we said, okay. We took the business instead of the money. And closed it. Well, he was on the verge of closing the retail store. So all we really got was the manufacturing part of it. So that's what we did. We worked there out of Gray Avenue and sold stuff different places they already established purchasing, and I expanded on that. And then eventually I read that Carpinteria Hardware was closing, because there were two hardware stores. There was Amway's and Carpinteria. Where we are now was Carpinteria Hardware. They were here when we came here. We bought we bought something there, a refrigerator, I think. It was a hardware store, but they had all kinds of stuff. They merged with Amway, so they closed up that place. But before that, even before that, it was a car dealership, a Chevy cars, Chevrolet agency, and they had a car in the window, and they had it parked in the back, and they had a lube job there, and you could buy a new car and sell your old one. So we bought a car there. See, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. We bought a car, a green Chevy station wagon. They seated like 9 people, because anyway, there was the Chevy and the Ford agency, which was across on Carp Avenue. They had the same kind of car, but made by Ford, exact same kind of vehicle with a very, very similar color. So often I get mixed up which car was mine. One time we were parked at a grocery store. I think John was with me, and he said, I started to put the stuff in the trunk, and he said, "Mom, this is not our car. How can you tell? It's too clean." So sure enough, we were getting in somebody else's car. Anyhow, it was, you didn't lock your car in those days. But anyhow, it was we bought a Chevy there. Then it became Carpinteria Hardware.
And then eventually Robitaille.
And then they turned into
Now
Robitaille.
your business was quite successful, huh?
So far. We've been there 30-some years.
And how was it you made it successful?
Just by going out there, just having something that people needed. We get a lot of people, local people, and we get a lot of tourists. And we have some wholesale customers as well that carry the product in their own stores. And
what's your President Ronald Reagan connection?
well, my husband got involved with as part of his job. Somehow he came across the information that when the president came to the ranch, they opened up a little office downtown Santa Barbara. Well, actually on the waterfront somewhere. It was
and who are you talking about?
Reagan. When Reagan came to town, his campaign, or his people, would open up a little office on Carrillo. Well, anyway, somewhere in Santa Barbara. And my husband found out about that, so he'd go hang out with these people and ask if he could send the president some candy. Well, they checked to see, and yes, he could do that, but he had to bring it there. Then they check it for safety. Well, anyway, that went on for quite a while. Every time Reagan would come into town, we'd leave a little care package at the office. It was like the communication center, that sort of thing. And so that's how we got involved with Reagan, by sending him candy.
And did you make a special presidential candy?
Yes, it wasn't special, it was our own. Our specialty is mints. That's what we had from the beginning. Because when we bought the business, that's what was the main thing they did. They made these mints that were unique because they're handmade and they're thin, and people like them. So when he got reelected, the second inauguration, the committee called and wanted to know if we would like to contribute to the event, because it's all financed by donors and no government money involved. And we said, yeah, but we didn't have any, we couldn't any money. And they said, no, we'll buy the candy from you. You don't have to buy it, but would you make something special? So we would pack the mints in, and the same things that we sold over the counter, we put them in a different box. And it had a little story in the back that they were the I don't know, the candy of the year or something. They gave it a title. And so that's how it got there. But we'd already been sending candy to President Reagan for a year or more when he was at the ranch. And as a result of all that, we went to inauguration, the second one, and our congressman, Bob Lagomarsino, was very helpful in getting us invitation to that and seeing to it that we went to the right place at the right time. When we got to Washington, Lagomarsino was very nice at having us come to his office, and we went to events there, and he'd go also, and he'd introduce us to people. I mean, he was really a very good congressman. So that's how we got involved with the president.
And so let's see, what else? So we're at Robitaille's Candy, and next door became the coffee grinder.
But before that, it was Eine's boutique. See, the coffee grinder, and
It expanded.
there's two businesses, two different businesses. Before one is there's two addresses. We're 900, Linda. There's a 902 and 904, and there's two meters. Because the lady that's there now asked my son, how come I get two meters and I have to pay two bills? And he said, I don't know. So they found out that it's two separate stores. A friend made them into one, but didn't change anything. Just knocked the wall down in between the two. Eine's House of Beauty is sort of like, a friend had that little, like a little seating area, a wine bar or something. You can enter through there, or you can go a few steps further and go into a regular door, or you can go around the corner and go through the patio.
And that's where Cork Tree Cellars is now.
Yeah, but I don't remember what was there before. Eine was too little. It was just a little tiny store that one lady, and she sold dresses and stuff.
How about the little courtyard? Were you here when that was built with the...
That belonged to the whole building and the courtyard. That would belong to the Baker family.
So Jack Hurley is optical and at the back of it.
Yeah, he's a tenant. The property, there's a beauty shop there too, and I'm not sure if that's part of the. I think that's part of the Bakers as well. That one is facing the courtyard.
Yeah.
That one, I think, is part of that business, of that land. So the Baker family owns a block from our store through to there, and then after that comes the health food store. That's a different owner.
Well, what about the health food store? What was there before?
Hard question. I can't remember what was there. Let me think. On the corner was a gas station.
Where
a Shell station.
Giovanni's Pizza is.
Yeah, that was a Shell station.
I guess the barber shop had been there, Marty Rosales.
Well, that was in the middle of the block.
In the middle. Anything else in the middle that you recall?
I can't remember what was there besides Marty's barber shop. And
Sushi Terry was a few things before it's now Sushi Terry.
Yeah, that was the exception. EGG, exception.
Yeah, clever title.
Yeah,
name.
Yeah, that was where sushi is now.
It was a piano bar restaurant at one point.
That one.
That was kind of brief.
That one I don't remember.
And then how about across the street on Linden, from where Weechel's sandwich shop is now?
Well, that was a grocery store, Ralph's.
That was Ralph's, huh?
Yeah, Ralph Walsh. No, Ralph. Yeah, I think it was Ralph Walsh. Yeah, Ralph and another fellow were partners, and they had a little grocery store and butcher shop. So they sold meat and other groceries. In the back of that, facing the parking lot, they, there, one of the wives, Nadine, and her friend Ruth opened up a florist shop. So you can go buy flowers and you can get your meat and eat veggies. It was sort of like a place where the people that didn't want, that couldn't be seen in Safeway. You know, you wouldn't be going to Safeway, but you go to Ralph's and buy the finest.
And where that flower shop is was
It left. It left.
now is an automotive supply place.
I don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
that's okay.
Behind Huichos?
Yeah, Weechel's is up front on Linden, where I guess Ralph's was.
Yeah.
How about the rest of that block?
Uh, well, that's. I think that's where. I'm trying to remember.
I know there was Brooks
Yeah,
shoe
yeah.
store.
That and there was a Chinese restaurant.
Oh, a Chinese,
Yeah.
Nine Dragons.
Yes.
The
And then there was May's Cafe, which is further closer to Carp. May was still there. And there was a bar. I think it's still there. A real dark, little narrow thing.
Oh, right. It was, yeah.
I mean, you walk by there, and it was like 10 feet wide. Everybody, the bar with the bar stools, and always a row of men in there, no matter what time of the day or night it was. It was favorite of guys. They hang around there.
I think that's where the record store is now, the LP record store. But anyway, yeah, what else on that block?
I keep thinking that.
How about on the corner where it was Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf?
Oh, that was a Chevron station.
Okay, now it's Carp Moon Cafe. Quite a few things have gone through there, right?
Yeah, yeah. And on the Carp side, well, with the Rexall, and then the little alley, and then the Safeway, and the Safeway became a grocery store. The guy that had a store in Santa Barbara opened up one second store there in that location. All American it was called, and it lasted a few years. And then Safeway was a big competitor, and then they gave up, closed it up, and then it became a gym. It was a gym for a long time.
And Zucker's Restaurant started there and then moved to where Zucker's Restaurant is now.
Yeah, at some point.
So we're now on Carpinteria Avenue, traveling west. On that side of the street where Limo's Pet Supply Store is now, you're talking about that.
Yeah.
What about across the street? There was the Bank of America.
Before that it was Security First National Bank. When we came here, that's what it was, and then it became Bank of America. And then
Was there a water tower behind it that had
yes,
a big sign?
yes, it did. It was in that area. I don't know exactly behind which building, but yeah, it was a big water tower. You could see it at a distance.
Do you remember what the sign said?
Yeah, Carpinteria.
Welcome to Carpinteria or something?
I don't remember what the welcome, but it said Carpinteria. You knew where you were.
And then how about the rest of that block? Is it pretty similar to what it is now?
Yeah, small shops, barber shop. I think it's still there. Valley Barbers. That was what Rosales, another Rosales guy, and Zip Gonzalez. They were partners in that business. No, Macias. Not. There was two Macias families that were not related. One, Eddie and Sarah. Eddie owned the Union gas station on Carp Avenue with the Pando. The two of them ran that station. Sarah Macias, she opened up a men's shop on Linden, which did, later on it closed up anyway. But the other Macias family had like 10 kids, and the guy was a barber, and I forget his first name, but anyway, he and Zip were the barbers, and that were Valley Barbers, I think they're called, and they're on Carpinteria Avenue, on the same block where the theater is.
And what was the theater like back then?
It was a movie theater. You could go there. It was like second run. I mean, there wasn't, you went to the Arlington if you want to see the movie, but if you wanted to see it a few weeks later, it would be here. People went, on Friday night, and it was a regular movie theater. It was kind of beat up and all, but
And so moving along Carpinteria Avenue, going west, there's Danny's Deli.
that was a gas station.
Was that? Yeah,
Yeah.
looks like one.
Yeah, that's all it was. I didn't have any food there, just gas station. But there was liquor stores. There was one liquor store. It's still there.
Right.
The
And there's the building where the Coastal View was that Keith Stein owns. And then next to that was the Rockwell House. Well, the cleaners.
yeah.
Was that there then?
Yes. That was the only cleaner since Mrs. Rockwell ran that. It was funny, a story about that. I was involved with city government. I forget, it was planning commission, or because I did that, and the city council. Anyway, we used to take the clothes there. And one day I was in there picking up stuff, and Mrs. Rockwell says to me, can you do something about the place next door? It was a little tiny location. I forget what it was. She said, it's supposed to be a massage thing, but I don't think they do any massages. I don't know what they do, but I was peeking through the crack in the wall, and I saw something going on that did not look like a massage to me. And there's a lot of people in and out of there. I don't know what goes on. I said, I can't do anything about that. She said, I think there's something bad going on there. I'm sorry, but it's not my business to find out what's going on in that store. Whatever it was, it didn't last. So,
And where was that? Behind the Rockwell cleaners?
Beside it, next to it.
Okay. That's funny.
I thought it was funny. She wanted me to do something. There's something going on there that I don't think it's massage. Anyway.
So let's see, what else on Carpinteria Avenue going west that do you recall?
Well, actually, I think what's the name of it? It's still there. Across from the clinic.
From the clinic?
Yeah.
Oh, was there an A&W root beer?
Oh, that was across the street. That's on the other side of Carp Avenue.
Yeah, which is now Brasburg.
Yeah.
It was A&W root beer.
And there was, and of course there was a Foster's. That was over here on this side.
On the other side of Carp Avenue, yeah. The other end.
At that side, I can't remember what was there after the grocery store. It was a vacant lot.
And just kind of from there to the end of Carp Avenue, the western end, what else do you recall changed? Or
I think the only thing that was there, besides vacant lots, because of the houses, there were a lot of houses, like on Pear Street, all the way to that's where Delgado's is now, on the corner of Pear Street. That side street is houses. There were houses going towards the railroad tracks, those side streets. But on Carp Avenue, I don't remember what. There was nothing spectacular. Gas stations, we had a couple of those. A couple of car repair places.
You were a city council person, right?
Yeah, and a planning commissioner as well.
In what years?
From 75 to 90.
And what were some of the big issues that you had to decide or weigh in on then?
Well, in the planning commission, mostly it was new construction. And whether to approve it or not, whether to even have it in certain places. The architectural review board was very picky, and they'd often come back to the planning commission to redo the plan because they decided they didn't like the windows. They were really strict.
Were you involved with the construction of all the buildings at the far western end of Carpinteria Avenue, where there now is the Rincon Wine Shop, the chocolate manufacturer.
I think that came after.
Okay, I think they referred to as the tilt-ups, because they pour the concrete on the ground and tilt up the walls. Did that come out? Because I've heard it criticized that it should have taken more advantage of the view of the marsh and the location next to the marsh.
Well, yeah, but see, at that time, that was the marsh, no big deal. It was just a swamp, really. I mean, nobody. It wasn't a famous thing. What make it famous? UCSB got involved in it.
When what?
When UCSB got involved in recognizing that this was a valuable asset, the marsh. And up to that, it was just like a swamp. Nobody wanted to be next to it. It wasn't a big deal.
There was talk about making it into a marina. Were you involved?
Yeah, but no, it was just talk. They also talk about having a new pier, because we had a pier. It got washed away at the end of Carp Avenue. I mean, Linden, a little bit.
By the Carpinteria Creek, huh?
Yes, there was a pier, and it was still there when we came. Half of it was still there. A storm came and took away half of it, and there was half a pier sitting there. I used to go to the beach, take the kids. We'd park in the is now the state park, and walk under the pier and didn't have to carry an umbrella or anything. I put a playpen under there. Whoever the baby was could be safe under the pier in the shade. And then I could watch the other ones. Anyway, it was kind of handy to have that. But there was talk about rebuilding it, and then nobody wanted to do that. If you build it, they will come and tell you to finance it. You have to have junkie shops and tourists, and it'd be no good. So they just got rid of it, destroyed the whole thing. But the same thing happened with the marsh. It never became anything. It's just now, of course, it's a treasure. But up until recent years, when UCSB take it, UCSB actually owns it. I don't know if you know that, but they own the marsh.
And I know the Marsh Park was made more recently to enjoy the marsh.
Yeah, well. It become well, same thing with the seals. Seals have been there forever. And all of a sudden they became important. And now we have seal watchers and rules and signs and all that. But up until then, you walk over there and there were seals were there. And so was the pier. That was already here.
The Chevron Pier?
Yeah, and that was in operation then. And noisy and smelly and whatever all you complain about, it was there. And the seals were there. They didn't care about those boats going back and forth every day.
And so let's go back to Carpinteria Avenue. If we're at Linden and Carpinteria Avenue and we travel east towards Los Angeles, what do you remember being there and anything different?
Well, on the south side of Carp Avenue was the gas station on the corner. It was a Shell station.
Where Giovanni's Pizza is now.
Yes, it was a Shell station. And then next to that was a bank.
Where Rincon Brewery is.
Yes, that became a bank. And then, I can't remember anything else, the Union gas station.
And then if you can travel along on that side, there's the empty kind of seaside park there where the fruit stand is.
Yeah, that was city property and it was just always vacant.
And then there's
the library.
The Friends of the Library and Library. The Friends of the Library building was a couple of restaurants and things. Do you remember?
It was like a juice bar. The last thing it was, there used to be a guy that rented boats. Like if you go fishing, little boats. He also had a gas pump, so if you had a motor, boat, then you could get gasoline there. He repaired them and he rented boats. And he also serviced them. So the little building was his shop, and the lot was where the outdoor boats were parked. Then when that went away, so years later, it became a juice bar, which was way ahead of its time.
I think that was maybe Lone Palm Juice Bar. There was a Lone Palm and Tina Fanucci, I think, started.
that was Fanucci. and Jim Gann. They were partners in that venture. But people weren't health conscious. You know, it's not healthy. It's just juice. But they were ahead of their time, and it
It
didn't.
also was a frame shop for a while.
Yeah, yeah. With this, also there was a somewhere around there, and I can't remember where now. Maybe there. There was an optometrist, a guy that ground lenses and put glasses together. And that was on Carp Avenue, but I can't remember exactly where.
And then the next door, the library, do you recall there was the fire there? A woman started it saying books are bad or something like that.
Well, yeah, vaguely. It did. It was.
Okay.
I probably wasn't paying attention to that much because
And
I was probably working for a living.
okay, good for you. And behind that is the vet's hall.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was always there. When we came, the vets hall, the fire station, and the library were all there, already there. And it was like, the center of town. The courthouse.
Oh, was the courthouse where the Friends of the Library is?
No, it's where the children's library is. When you go in the, we hear where that ramp is that they built for access
Yeah.
lately? Well, before that, there was no entrance on that side of the building. It was just windows. And you could enter through, the main entrance was through, Walnut or which is, whatever that street is. I mix up between Walmart and...
People in Carpinteria don't know the names of the streets very well. It's always referred to what's there.
Yeah, well, that one was, the library entrance was on that corner. And it still is, but they sealed it. You can't go that way anymore.
And there was a children's library there?
And
There still is.
Yeah, well, they expanded that into the courthouse. The courthouse was on the Carpinteria Avenue side of the library, except it was not connected to the library. It was adjacent to it, but not part of it.
A real courthouse?
Yes, it had a real courthouse. It had a judge that came, I think like a dog, his name was Patillo, I think, Patillo. And he came like once a week, and the courthouse was a municipal court. It was legitimate. They had a bench, and they had the jury boxes, and they had a table for the attorneys and the perpetrators, and you could go there and watch trials. Mostly it was drunk driving, spousal abuse, traffic violations, and that kind of thing. There was nothing really, no murders, but it was whatever, local stuff. So you knew, I was called to jury duty one time.
Excuse me. Yeah.
And I went, and I walked there from here. I mean, it wasn't I walked across the creek and went there, and I waited for the judge to come, and they called the names and then questioned if I knew anybody, and I said, well, I know the defendant, and I know his lawyer. So they dismissed me. You knew everybody, it was local. Most likely you knew, at some point, you knew whoever was there, was the criminal. So they sent me home.
How about on the other side of the street of Carp Avenue? There is Mills Corner.
Oh, yeah, well, that's been there forever. Mills Corner, the Mills Drugstore. And next to Mills Drugstore was a little tiny grocery store. And at some point, when Mills got more popular, they knocked down the wall between the two locations and they expanded Mills. They had a soda fountain, which was really neat in those days. And then...
Well, what is a soda fountain?
Well, it's a counter where you can go there and sit down with little stools and order a milkshake, an ice cream cone, like that kind of a... Every drugstore had one of those soda fountains. You go have... Some has sandwiches or hamburgers, depending on the location and the need. Sometimes it's just ice cream, or ice cream products. Other times they had actual food.
And moving along, there's the Jack's Bagels building now.
Oh, that was a bank.
A bank.
But it was nothing. It was they built it from scratch, the bank. It was Casitas National Bank. It was a local bank with local funding, which failed. And it became various other banks.
And then moving along across the street on the north side of the street of Carpinteria Avenue is Sunburst Wine Bar now. And what was before that?
That was a house, a private house. And at some point it became a business where they had
Printers. Sunburst Printing Shop.
Yes. But before that, it was just somebody's house.
And how about the next building over, which is now Teddy's by the Sea restaurant?
That was the first, that was the second city hall.
Second City Hall.
The first one was Colson's Garage.
Colson's Garage?
In the back room, there was a back room. That's where the first city was first created. They met there, all of the council people.
And what street was that on?
6th Street.
6th Street.
6th and Walnut or whatever, either Walnut or whatever that street is.
Was the third City Hall where Gonzo's Bicycles is now? Across from Rockwell's? Well, there was a City Hall there at one point, apparently. Okay. So back to where we were. There's the current Teddy's by the Sea was the second City Hall.
But that was somebody's house originally.
Right.
Yeah. That was just all residential. There was no business on that side.
And then moving along, there's Lucky Llama and the Torrey Pine.
Yeah, that was private property as well. No business.
Okay.
But that was owned by something. Now I think it's owned by somebody owns the tree, and that means that property, the lot, and Teddy's and the Lucky Llama, that whole block.
Right.
I don't know who it is. Did you know that there was a wedding under that tree one time? A very famous people.
Well, I barged in on it with my camera, Al Gore.
Yeah.
Okay.
What a place to have a wedding. Oh, well.
It wasn't her first wedding, apparently. Okay. But it was a nice wedding. I made the mistake of asking Al Gore, what's the secret to a good marriage?
Oh.
And he was there with his ex-wife, Tipper Gore. I made a mistake. So there's the Torrey Pine lot, and then there's some businesses, and then there's Rusty's Pizza.
Oh,
And around the corner, the Women's Club.
Yeah, well, that's on a different street.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
Rusty's, I don't know what was there before. I can't remember at all. The Women's Club has always been there. That was there then. I belonged to it. Well, they had a junior women's club. Like the Chamber of Commerce had a junior chamber in those some days. It was like people under 35. Once you got to be 35, then you couldn't be a junior anymore. You became a senior. And then you got to go to the senior club, a women's club. Problem was that there was a big age gap in between. The younger women reached the age of 35 fairly soon, but the older women started like at 65. So there was a 30-year gap and there were no members. Well, you would have got to join a club and be the only 36-year-old, so you just didn't join it. But the women's club is still there, and they own that property. So they're going to be there forever.
Do you remember what you did as part of the Women's Club?
Yeah, we raised money.
For what type of things?
Oh, for scholarships. We do stuff like, we get together with most of the women in the Junior Women's Club, which is the one I belong to, were stay-at-home moms. Most of us were. Very few women worked if they have kids. And we bring the kids along in various projects. With the first anniversary of the city, we had a stencil thing, and we painted birthday cakes on windows. We'd ask permission, can we put a birthday cake on your window? They say yes, so we'd pull up the station wagon with the kids and the paint can, and we do a thing on the window, and stuff like that. We did petitions. We walk around petitioning something or other. We made corsages and sold them for for a fundraiser. We stay outside of Safeway and sell our corsages that we had from donated flowers. We go to the different flower guys and get flowers from them and make corsages in our basement, and then go and sell them. And we make maybe $100, and then we use that for scholarship.
Nice. For high school kids?
Yes, they'd apply for. I mean, we had $100 or something, you know, but enough to buy books and something.
Nice. So moving along Carpinteria Avenue, there's what's now the middle school. Well, the pool was built. I guess before that, the Good Plow was an A&W root beer.
That was way down.
Okay, what was before? Well, not A&W root beer. No, A&W root beer.
Foster.
Yeah, Foster's Freeze. Yes.
Yeah, Foster Freeze.
It's Foster Freeze. Okay.
Yeah, that was just a vacant lot. They built that building. I don't think there was anything there before.
And the pool was built.
Yeah, that wasn't there to begin with. But tennis court was. We had a tennis court, but the pool came later. And that was the high school.
Right, that was the high school at the time.
Yeah, there was no junior high. I don't think there was a junior high. If it is, I don't know where it was, because the main school was only up to 6th grade, and they closed that one. I don't know. I guess they ran out of kids. But that was the main school and the high school were close together. Well, you know what the main school is. It's something else now.
Oh, well, it's the children's project at main school, I think.
Yeah.
But you're saying that the main school and the high school were all part of that on that lot?
No, they were two different locations,
near each other.
But that's all we had. We didn't have. Catalina was built about the time we came here. Shortly thereafter, Aliso was there.
Right.
But Catalina wasn't.
Aliso at one point was a school for Mexican kids.
Well, it wasn't strictly for Mexican kids, but they lived there. Most of that old town, because we call old town, was Mexican people, so of course there were Mexican kids. But it wasn't designed for that. My daughter Janine was sent there for kindergarten. I said, "Are you balancing something? You know, what do they want? Why are you being sent there?" Well, because they had a space, and the Catalina was already full of kindergarten kids, so they sent her to Aliso. And there were all kinds of kids there. They were just Mexicans.
You being Mexican-American yourself, do you have any thoughts about the Mexican-American community here in town? Are there fewer than there used to be? Are they treated okay? Any thoughts?
I'm really not familiar with them, because I never worried about that. I mean, remember when I decided to run for council, I was interviewed by some guy who said to me, "Why do you deny your heritage?" That was his opening statement. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, nobody knows you're Mexican." I said, well, wait a minute. My mother's Irish, my father's Mexican. What am I in between? Which one should I deny? I'm an American. I live here. I speak English. I speak Spanish. Big deal. Well, he didn't like my answer, and he gave me a very bad review. I got a really lousy article out of that. But that was a stupid question. And I will answer the same way now. I don't see the difference. I mean, I know a lot of Mexican people here. All these people that I named, the Macias, the Moranos, they were all Mexican people, maybe second or third generation American. There was no problem. Lorenzo was one of my buddies, and he came out. He was born in the U.S., but his family was traveling fruit pickers. Somehow they ended up in the lemon business, and they stayed here.
Lorenzo Martinez.
I mean, I had no problem with with him being Mexican or not. He was a Marine. He went to Korea. He was a Mexican American, but mostly American, really, because he did all the American stuff.
So back to Carpinteria Avenue, what about the two malls, Shepherd Place and Casitas Plaza?
Well, they were both lemon fields, lemons, both, nothing but lemons. We had a dog that escaped, always was escaping here, and if I wanted to find him, he was hanging around the lemons. So I just go there and park the car, and he'd see me. He'd come up, he'd get about this far from me, and then he'd take off. It was a constant chase with that stupid dog. But it was all lemons. And in the 70s, they all disappeared and all the new buildings were put up. And that's what we have now. And then Shepherd's Place, the same thing, but a little bit later. I believe that came up just a little after the mall.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to remember from Carpinteria back in the day?
It was a very nice little town. What's going on?
Would you say it's much different now?
Well, the people are different.
How
I
so?
mean, from my observation, when we were here, and I don't know what it was before we came here, but we came here, say, 1960, or 59, 60. We got involved in the community. We went to St. Joseph's Church. When they opened the school, our kids went there. We knew people that, parents of the kids that went there. We went to social things. We worked. We worked the festival when they started having.
The St. Joseph's Festival?
Yeah, and we worked the booths or the food part. Always involved in something, and most of the people that I knew then did that. They were community helpers. We had a major flood in 1969, I think. The St. Joseph's School was full of mud, splashed up inside the classrooms, up to the windowsills. People, ladies and friends of mine, we went there with a bucket and washed it down. Nobody told us to do that. We just did. It wasn't organized. It wasn't like a social media to come and help. No, they would just show up. So that was the kind of place it was, and they accepted us, foreign, carpetbaggers. The ranchers weren't too happy with us, especially when we became a city. They didn't want that.
Why didn't they want that?
Because they thought it was going to be taxes. We were going to tax everything. And how else are we going to make any money if we don't tax? And that's come to pass recently, but not
Are you talking about sales tax or property tax?
property tax. Sales tax we could do, but property tax we didn't want to do that. There was a property tax already, but that one was levied by the county, and the city got a cut of that, but we didn't have our own property tax. So anyway, that came the last few years, about 1.5% or something.
I believe your husband, his first name was?
Guy, G-U-Y.
Guy Robitaille. He was not in favor, I understand, of the city incorporating, but he ran for office still, and he was on the first city council, right?
No, that was Ernie Wilbrandt.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, that's Ernie Wilbrandt.
Yeah,
sorry.
it was Ernie Wilbrandt. My husband worked for incorporation. He thought it'd be a good idea, and he did run for city council, but he didn't make it. There were like 20 people running for the office, and 5 of them were selected. Those 5 people, then out of that, the one that got the most votes became an automatic mayor, and the others just council people. They served. They had a two-year term or a 3-year term, and they rotated. They had elections every 2 years, or it changed. It's still the same, but we had a very diverse. Talking about diversity, I don't understand this. What they've done recently with the different. What are they called?
The district election?
District, yes, because we had 2 people from this district fighting for 1 seat. there wasn't enough people to do that, really. Just,
Greg Hardy and Al Clark.
yeah, and who's going to, anyway. Originally, the original council was people that wanted to serve the city, and they had no interest, no financial interest or any business interest, and they were just normal people. The first council was, first of all, was the school, the principal, Alan Coates. He was he was a teacher at the high school. Okay, we had a dentist, Doctor. Shoot, what's his name? Anyway, a dentist. We had an optometrist, a woman, Mrs. Mills, who was a businesswoman. That was a plus. And Olio Olivas was a Mexican. And Ernie Wolfman, who didn't like anybody. So, and was opposed to the city forming. But he ran for office because to protect the ranchers, so we did not screw them in any way. So that was Ernie Wolfman's job, to protect the people that did not want to have a city.
But you're saying there was more diversity with.
Just left alone, leave them alone. I mean, think of the people that we had: a woman, a Mexican, two professional people, three, a doctor, the optometrist, and the dentist, and this teacher. So what more do you want? Anyway.
What were some of the other big? Well, there was the bluffs. Some people didn't. Some people wanted it developed. What were the issues there?
Well, there were people who wanted it to be left as is because it was open space, and it would be crowded with condominiums and hotels and whatever all was proposed. At different times, different proposals came up, and it would be reviewed and decided upon, and they'd always decide, no, they didn't want anything there. So finally, now I'm thinking now, that was way after my time. But when I was on the council, Serena had decided he was going to build a condo project on the bluffs, and he promised me. He said, well, I wasn't there anymore, but he said to me, "You're going to get one of those units, aren't you?" Yeah, I'm sure I am. But anyway, he never came to pass. Another project that came up was people that had converted buses. They'd buy an old Greyhound bus and convert it into a vacation bus, like an RV. They put, they take all the innards out, and they had a partition to put a bed, put the toilet and the beds, and just like an RV. Well, there's a group of 20 people who owned these buses, and we're like a club, and they were looking for a place to park their buses when they weren't traveling, and they found a place on the bluffs. It was like a ditch already, and it wouldn't be hard to just kind of dig it out and park the buses. Well, that actually was seriously considered, but it was turned down. No, we didn't want that there, and I mean, I can see why. I wouldn't want that either. But stuff like that, every so often something would pop up. It was a consideration, and it never happened.
There's a lot of people that want to keep Carpinteria the way it is now and not change. But many of those people, maybe more than half of them, are people that have come more recently. Is there a history of people moving here and then saying, now that I've gotten my piece, I don't want any more development or any more people?
Not so much that, but I did notice that when people came, there was a bunch of people that came from Chicago, Infrared. They closed their plant in Chicago and transferred everybody to Carpinteria. Those people were just normal families, and they integrated right away. They were out there volunteering, like the rest of us. Later, people started coming, and they decided that we were really a hick town, and we got to fix it up. So we made Linden Avenue like a mall. You know, the green, blue-green paint things, very restrictive on what you put on the sidewalk. Everything had to go to the ARB or somebody. Awnings, forget those. It was the kind of tree that dug up all the palm trees, except the ones at the palms because they're sacred. But any other palm tree on Linden, gone. Planted, went to great lengths to plant the proper trees that were uh, pedestrian friendly, which turned out to be a disaster because they didn't realize that the roots were coming up after a few years. They had to replace those.
Because it wrecked the sidewalk.
Right, and they just should have known that when they planted them, but they were so focused on the appearance that they didn't get the right advice. Anyhow, those people were really obnoxious. They took over, they thought we were hicks. They fired the city manager,
Who was the city manager?
Alan Coates.
Alan Coates. Uh-huh.
He was the first in the first council, and he
Right.
got the most votes. So he became eventually he became city manager. Fired him, and it became, the whole thing changed the tone of the council. They were nasty, really, to tell you the truth. They were not nice. They thought we were really hicks. So it created a kind of a rift a little bit, you know, kind of. I mean, I lost interest in doing. I used to go, you know, watch the council meetings and stuff. But I lost interest.
Well, were the people that you're saying were nasty, was that the slate, or did they come in later?
No, they came in later.
They came in later.
Yeah.
Uh,
And yeah, they were. We had a vote, an opportunity to vote on some measure that would take away some of the funds that were allotted to the school district and use them for something else that the city needed. And I guess a lot of cities did that. But it had to go to a vote. But the campaign was awful. They didn't want that. They didn't want that to happen. The school district needed every penny they needed, they could get, and we not to take any percentage of it for any other purpose. So anyway, but they were so nasty. It was just not nice at all. So it kind of left a little sour taste in my mouth about the. And I think, I don't know, people are nasty, but they don't cooperate. They're not here long enough. The ones that here move here, but you don't see them work in the Avocado Festival or the St. Joseph Carnival. They don't volunteer for stuff like that. They just come and enjoy the beach and don't go and cooperate, don't join anything, the Lions Club or anything. So it's a whole different type of people that come.
I hear what you're saying, that may be the case. I think it's also, to a degree, younger people, wealthy people are moving here, and their kids are here, and they do become involved in some things in the community, but then others maybe who retire here aren't as involved in the community.
Well, like the people that live next door here, they have they come from San Fernando Valley, and they have a connection here. Though at least she has a sister who lives here, but you never see them. In fact, you never see them. They come like 3 or 4 times a year, for a few days, and that's it. So they can't possibly be involved in anything. They're not here.
I like how you referred to yourself as a carpetbagger, because you came here in '59.
Yeah, that's what they called us.
Okay, and I moved here in '91.
You were a carpetbagger.
And I didn't call myself a local till a few years ago, maybe.
Yeah. Well, we only had 1 kid when we moved here. Now eventually we had 4. So we're here for a while. All our kids were raised here. And, well, actually, not really. I insisted on my kids having a Catholic education because I did, my husband did, and we think we needed kids need the discipline that the Catholic schools offered. We insisted on. There was no fooling around there.
Any thoughts about what the schools have been like, the public schools, and whether they've changed at all, or would you know?
I really don't know because my kids
You
never went to public school until college, and two of them went to a Catholic college. The other two went to Cal Poly, and so that's all I know is what they learned in a Catholic school.
I know when my boys started school in the 90s, it was, well, it was about 45% Hispanic. Now it's a lot more Hispanic. Um, any thoughts about many Hispanic families can't afford to live in town and had to move out? Although I guess there still are a lot of Hispanic.
Yeah, well, a lot of them are second, third generation, and they've stayed. You know, they work whatever jobs they can here.
And many also purchase properties and have land.
Yeah, well, like 7th Street. 7th Street at one point was all Saragosas. The whole street, some Saragossa family. Now I think there's only one left. The rest of them either moved out or died. A lot of Gonzaleses, a lot of Macias, Morenos. All those people were second or third generation, but little by little they go elsewhere. They can't find jobs here. They can't, you know. There's nothing for them to do locally, except work the field. And if they're educated, they don't want to do that. They want to go get a job that pays well.
What would you say are your favorite things about Carpinteria?
Oh, the weather, the beach, the people. Actually, I mean, it's still a small town in some areas. All overall, I'm glad we moved here. From a big city to a nowhere town. When we first came, friends from LA came to visit, and the wife said to me, as we got off of the 101, well, actually, it wasn't a freeway, it was just still a highway. She said, we got worse and worse, and pretty soon we'll see like a lot of gas stations, and we see a welder shop, and we said to, where on earth did he take her? What kind of a dump this is? Till they got to the beach. And then they realized why we were here. But welding, you forgot about welding. It's still there.
Oh, right. The welding shop.
Yeah. I mean, see, we had all kinds of stuff.
Which is by the surf shop.
Yeah.
Matt Moore's place, yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, that was a working operation. Wilbrand ran that. Joe Wilbrand.
Joe Wilbrand.
Yeah. That was Ernie's cousin.
Does there seem to be more traffic in town or not, or?
Well, probably more, yeah. And
Were you here when the freeway was built?
yes.
So how was Carpinteria Avenue different when it was Highway 1?
It was just like it is now. There was not much difference because the freeway was built outside of it, not part of it. So it was just like it is now.
It wasn't more traffic then, huh?
No, well, we had to go to Santa Barbara for, doctors. We had 3 doctors here, 3 MDs, and a couple of dentists. So, I mean, we had everything we needed here already. So we go to Santa Barbara for maybe take the kids to buy clothes because there wasn't too much just here, shoes. Eventually, you had to do more in Santa Barbara. But other than that, you had most everything you needed was right here.
Lastly, what lessons have you learned in life, or what suggestions do you have to people to be happy and have a good life?
Well, the first thing you have to do is have some faith, some spiritual background. Trust that God will take care of you. Uh, be strict with your kids a little bit. Don't let them get away with anything. We managed to do that. We didn't have any problem with them, but uh, we prevented problems. We didn't just let them find out how bad things were. We prevented. We carpooled. We took them to the games, and even when they were in high school, we'd go to the game. They might come home with a friend or something else, but we were there. We were available. And I think that's important. I think a family with two parents that are involved with their kids is very, very valuable. Yeah. And so that's the experience I've had. And that's the experience I had growing up. I was one of 9. My mother had 9 kids. And all of us turned out fairly well. We all became, educated, and we had college educations, and we're all fine. And the same thing with my kids. We saw that they got the best education we could afford, and that was what we did. And they've all, so far, so good.
Do you have any other thoughts about how to be happy, such as be positive, be loving, gifting?
Yeah, but that's all right. That's all you need to do. And then I don't worry too much about things. I don't fret and worry. I try to do the best I can with what I have at the moment, and not worry about the past or the future. Within reason. I mean, I do worry about my kids. Were they going to be okay? Should they, go to this here or there? But after that, I don't worry about them. And I don't worry about me. I'm 92 years old and I'm still around. I didn't plan that, but here I am. So, and I don't plan to go anywhere. I don't know how long I'll be here. But
Well,
whatever it is, yeah.
you don't worry, you kind of accept it, make the best of what
Yeah,
you have.
yeah.
Don't obsess about things.
No, and don't aim too high. Some people think aim so high that if they don't achieve it, they get depressed. They get all kinds of things happen to them. Well, just go with the flow, I say. But I was lucky. I had a good life. And kids are all well. I have 9 grandkids, 14 grandkids and 9 great grandkids.
Wow.
That's a lot of people. So, that I'm responsible for. No, not good. They've all, so far, so good. None of them have had any serious problems. So
Well,
I'm thankful for that.
thank you so much, Carmen Robitaille. You're a lovely lady, intelligent, warm, thoughtful, and appreciate all your memories.
Thank you. I wish I could have thought of more, but uh, after a while, I got involved in. I had a real job. I actually had paid, so I went to. I was an RN to begin with. That's my education, and so I went back to kind of the same business, and I worked for Santa Barbara Clinic and other places for about 10 years, and then I lost track of what was going on here because I was busy doing things in Santa Barbara. So I missed a gap. But other than that, it was fine.
And you're holding down the fort here in your neighborhood on Calle Jean.
Okay, yeah. Well, we have only 5 houses, or 6. That house I don't count because it's facing the wrong way and I can't remember the people there. But we have only 6 houses, and I know them all, and I know who's been here before, and a 60-year history of this street.
Anything else you'd like to say?
No, not really. I think I've expressed all my information, and I thank you for listening to me. I hope I think you can put it together with other people. Make sure you go to people that have been here longer than I have, or at least remember more than I do. Because when you're 92, you tend to forget stuff.
You seem to remember pretty well.
Well, actually, I think I do, but I know of a lot of gaps that I don't remember what happened. Like who was there before the cork tree? I have no idea. Something was there before. The exception maybe. But before that, I don't know. Somebody might remember.
Okay,
Like, it's not really important.
not so.
But anyway, thank you for taking all this time and being interested in this.
And not just me, but everybody that watches this will find you interesting.
I hope you edit it.
Thanks so much, Carmen.
Thank you for coming, and if I can think of something else, I'll call you.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe we'll have to do this next year, once a year.
Okay, I'll invite you to my next birthday party. I had a nice big birthday party a couple of years ago. This year wasn't much, but when I became 90, it was a big party.
Okay.
But
See you next time.
okay, bye.